Welcome to Lotus Lane Daily. I'm glad you're here. Today's wisdom is for anyone going through something hard. You know that feeling when you have to update your email signature, and every time you see the new title, the lesser title, something in you flinches. You try not to look at the old signature still cached in your sent folder. You hope the colleagues who knew you before do not make a thing of it. You try to act normal in meetings while sitting with the knowledge that formally, officially, you have been moved backward, and everyone around you knows it. Being demoted is one of the most privately devastating things that can happen in a career. It is not like being laid off, where at least there is a kind of clean break. A demotion keeps you in the same building, at the same desk, around the same people, while broadcasting that you were found insufficient. The daily exposure to the evidence of it is its own specific cruelty. If you are reading this at 2 a.m. because it just happened, or because you have been carrying it for weeks and still cannot quite absorb it, this is for you. The particular wound of a demotion. A demotion is not just a business decision. It lands as a verdict. The message, whether anyone says it out loud, is, "We put you in a bigger role and you were not enough for it." And that message, even when it is wrong, even when the role was set up for failure, even when the standards were unclear or the support was absent, tends to get internalized very personally. So the grief of a demotion is complicated. There is the practical hit, the pay cut if it came with one, the reduced scope, the loss of a team or responsibility you may have cared about. But underneath that is something harder to name, a wound to your sense of who you are professionally. You had a story about yourself and your trajectory, and this event has disrupted it in a very public way. It is worth giving yourself permission to feel that. Not to wallow in it indefinitely, but to actually acknowledge that this is a real loss and a real blow, and that the right response to a real blow is not to immediately bounce back with toxic positivity. It is to sit with it honestly first. What is true and what is the story? Once the initial shock settles, even a little, it is worth separating what is factually true from the story you are probably adding on top of it. What is factually true? Your organization has made a decision to change your role. That is real. Whatever specific performance or fit issues led to it, some of those may be legitimate, some may not be. What is the story you are probably adding? That this means you are fundamentally not good enough, that your best career years are behind you, that this is how people will always define you, that you will never recover your reputation, that the people who knew you before now see you differently in some permanent way. That story feels true right now because the pain is fresh, but it is not a fact. It is a meaning you are assigning to the event, and that meaning is worth questioning. A piece of writing I came across in a collection of philosophical letters puts it directly. Changing ourselves is the most difficult revolution of all, but it is the most important revolution. What that means here is not that you need to transform yourself in some grand way, but that the first real work after a demotion is internal. It is examining the story you are attaching to this event and deciding deliberately what meaning to carry forward. That is not easy, but it is the most important thing you can do before taking any external action. Practical steps. In the right order. Most advice about demotions jumps straight to tactics. Start applying elsewhere. Have a conversation with your manager. Make a plan. All of that matters eventually. But the order matters, because tactics executed from a place of raw hurt tend to go badly. First, understand what actually happened. This requires a real conversation with your manager or HR, not a defensive one, but a genuinely curious one. Ask what specifically led to this decision. What would success in my new role look like? What would it take to rebuild from here, if I wanted to? You are not necessarily committing to staying. You are trying to get actual information instead of spending months in the dark inventing worst-case explanations. Some of what you hear will be hard. Some of it will be genuinely unfair or poorly communicated. Get the information anyway, because clarity, even painful clarity, is almost always better than the fog of not knowing. Then, decide honestly whether you want to stay and rebuild or leave. Both are legitimate choices. Staying and rebuilding requires a genuine willingness to start smaller, prove yourself again, and work without resentment toward the people who made the decision. That is a high bar, and you should not pretend to meet it if you do not. If you stay while furious and humiliated, it will show, and the situation will deteriorate further. Leaving is also legitimate. A demotion is a significant change in the employment relationship, and you are not obligated to continue in a place where you have been formally marked as insufficient, especially if you do not believe the verdict was fair. You can leave with your head up. You can take what you learned, including what this experience showed you about your own blind spots, and build something better elsewhere. Either way, reframe the narrative for yourself before you have to explain it to others. Eventually, someone will ask. Former colleagues, future employers, people at dinner parties. You need a version of this story that is honest but not self-flagellating. Something like, I was in a role that was a poor fit, and the company moved me back. It was hard, and I learned a lot from it. Here is what I know now that I did not know then. That kind of answer signals maturity and self-awareness. It closes the chapter without slamming the door. The longer arc. Here is something that is genuinely hard to believe right now, but tends to be true over a longer time horizon. Many people look back on a demotion as a pivotal moment that changed their direction in useful ways. Not because the pain was secretly good for them in some tidy self-help sense, but because it forced a reckoning with questions they had been avoiding. Was this role actually right for me? Was I growing in this direction, or just being carried by ambition and momentum? What do I actually want? Those questions, asked honestly, sometimes reveal that the role you were demoted from was never quite you to begin with. That you had been stretching towards something that looked like success from the outside, but felt hollow from the inside. That the demotion, though it arrived as punishment, actually redirected you towards something truer. There is a line from an old letter that I find genuinely useful here. If you are feeling exhausted, if you are feeling defeated, that is often a sign that you are close to a breakthrough. Keep going. Not every low point is the bottom. Sometimes the lowest point in the immediate arc is the turn. You will not see that yet. You do not have to see it yet. Right now, you just have to get through today and then tomorrow. The longer view will become available when you are ready for it. What happened to you was real, and it hurt, and you are allowed to say so. What happens next is still unwritten. That's the wisdom for today. If something here landed for you, share it with one person who might need to hear it too. Take it slow. I'll see you tomorrow on Lotus Lane Daily.